Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi here on this Saturday midday, and hope you're having a good start to your weekend. We're going to be covering a lot today. We've got Jose. We have Tropical Storm Lee, which is really not a big deal, but we'll do something where I can at least show it to you. And we have the potential tropical cyclone now that is east of the Lesser Antilles, and that's going to, I think, become a tropical storm in short order based on what I'm seeing on the satellite. Raymond, you're saying that the audio is low, so let me do something about that. I actually have it all the way up, so maybe I'm speaking low. How's that? But all right, so let's let me know if it's okay. Okay, so let's let me just, at least if I can get the chat up where I can see you guys, it'll help me and help you as well. So let me shorten this up. And so let me say hello to everybody. Isaiah, Gypsy, I saw Delvin was on earlier. Raymond, Steve, Anne-Marie, Talco, Cynthia Gwynn is here. Scott, Ben, who's out lobster fishing, and that's a good thing to do. We also have Pugmaster, and it looks like it just about covers it. So, why don't we get started here? Because, as I said, we have a lot going on. So I'm going to begin with the satellite view. We'll go to the eastern satellite view first, and we're going to be seeing Jose in the mix here, and we'll widen it out. You can see me in the corner, but I'm going to go away for a moment. And there you have Jose. They are an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft is en route to investigate. One of the things that I'm seeing here with respect to the forecast for the East Coast is that it doesn't seem to be getting much further to the west than it already is. I'm starting to detect a little bit more of a northward motion, and if that is correct, this is going to be coming up the coast a shade further offshore, and the weather model trends for the last few runs have been to shift slowly after a bunch of model runs where we went to the left and even way left. We're now seeing this gradually shift off to the right, and that would be good news overall. And the areas that are going to be brushed by this will be coastal New Jersey. I mean, literally right along the coast, from Sandy Hook to Cape May at the beaches. You're probably going to get into some fringe gales for a little while. And for Long Island, particularly central and eastern Long Island, for shore areas of the Twin Forks, out to southeastern New England, Cape Cod, and the surrounding islands. I think that is the extent of the threat, and also may wind up being the very back edge, western edge of the rain area. So if you are literally just north and west of New York City, or just to the west of the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey, for example, you may not even know that there's an actual hurricane passing by you to the east. Now, the ocean's going to get roughed up. And look, I don't want to completely discount, there's still time here for some sort of bizarre westward jog. I'm just kind of following, this is why you got to sort of follow these things along as they develop, because we saw what happened with respect to Irma at the last minute with that westward shift. And last year with Hermine, right inside 12 hours, we had an almost 150-mile error in the weather model. So, we always want to be cautious here with regards to the track situation. And I don't know why that happens, why they get hooked up like that. Let me see if I can fix this. But no, for some reason, I've gotten attached to the satellite. Okay, so we'll just leave it there. So let's go to a tight view of Jose now and see what's happening. It's actually been holding its own pretty well. The convection seems to be concentrated in a rather large ball right near the center. Of course, the picture now disappeared, so let me bring it back up to the top. And there you have it. Make me disappear now. But there you go. So you can see there's a large, concentration right near the middle. You got some pretty good outflow. I don't really see any evidence of any strong shear going on. So, but it should. I'm guessing the plane will probably find it a bit stronger than what it was. And if you look closely, it really doesn't look like it's moved very much at all. This could be because it's getting ready to do an adjustment in the track, which up until now has been northwest. It may start moving more toward the north. I'm kind of thinking I'm seeing some northward component of motion there, but I'm not. You need at least 4 or 5 hours of pictures sometimes to really get a good perspective with regards to that. So we'll go to the enhanced satellite view. And if you follow the bright red spot, I mean, it looks like it's moving north-northwest now, maybe 330, 340, but definitely not a whole lot of westward component of motion at the moment. So it's barely to 72 degrees west. So this is, as far west as it gets. You have to kind of line up the thread. And even if it moves north, eventually, it is going to try to take that hook to the east. And that the timing of that turn is going to be very important. If it's off by a couple of hours, that's an extra 40 or 60 miles further north that it's going to get. The hurricane track models overnight, make their pass offshore and far enough offshore, again, to spare everyone from anything of consequence except the immediate coast. But they're not that far away either, so you want to be. I want to be careful with this. They're not that far away from the coastline. So the westernmost outliers, especially these two models. There's 3 western outliers here. This would be close enough to have a greater impact. And remember, this system is going to get bigger in terms of geographic size as it starts to transition over into a an extratropical cyclone or some kind of hybrid cyclone. So we're going to see an expanding area of wind and rain onto the west side. So we want to be cautious of that. These were the GFS ensembles from last night. And bring that up. And you can see that here. Pretty much, just offshore. It's kind of hard to see in terms of, they kind of decided to use the wide view. I don't often like that they do that. Now, for you folks in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, might want to pay attention because this, if it goes out, passes just to the south of Nova Scotia and just to the southeast of Newfoundland. And if it's transitioning over into some sort of extratropical cyclone at that point, you are going to probably see some impacts out of this. So we'll take a look at the models, and I'll take them out. We'll go out far up to the east, so we'll take a closer look at those, and I'll do that right now. So let me shrink this down. Trying to get a little more dexterous with this stuff. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And at the same time, I want to make sure that you guys can actually see everything. So let me just check. I like to double check. And this is where, I've really come to appreciate, by the way, the guys that work at my job that work on the technical end of this, because it requires a lot of concentration and just seeing to make sure that the your shot is set there so you can see the map. And I lowered it down so that hopefully you'll be able to see the date. Let me bring it down a little bit more, and you should be able to see the date and time on it. So okay, so here we go with the GFS, the new one. It should be the new one, and I believe it is. So I'm gonna start it back from the beginning, and we'll scroll it along. And I'll also get the tighter eastern region. So you can see that within short order as we move into Sunday morning, it's actually moving north-northeast, but it really is more, it's going to shoot out maybe northeast and then start turning northward for a while as it responds to the trough to the west. But, you know, it's almost a degree to a degree and a half to the right. Now, it does bring rain inland on this run, and we then turn it up toward Cape Cod. Do I have the wrong run? I'm sorry. This is one of the earlier runs. I did this again yesterday. I'm sorry. I just realized that this is not the new run. This was out too far. So now I got the new run. Okay. And you know, when I'm trying to maneuver this, I'm doing this on a really small screen, so it's very hard for me to see to make out what exactly which model run I'm looking at. But there you go, and you can see how it's a little bit further to the east on this run. And actually, the rain from that earlier run got pretty far to the west. Here, it barely makes it to the coast. And in fact, you know, one band that goes through, this thing, you know, winds up being even further southeast. So, you know, if that's the case, the impacts even for some of the coastal areas up here. Again, this is one model run of the GFS, so we got to be careful because, you know, we're still within that margin of error, but the trend now has been decidedly to the right. And then it moves pretty much straight east, so you can see it does make a close pass to Nova Scotia. Even though the actual low center goes to the south, it does make a close pass to it. You know, at this point, I'm wondering how much in the way of tropical characteristics this is going to have. But what is happening in the upper air is that it's amazing, by the way, how sometimes it can just be a really subtle thing in the upper atmosphere that changes everything. And if you look, you know, we don't really have, you know, at least at this point for the beginning of this coming week, you know, when this ridge that's building in the east, Jose is coming up faster, so the ridge is not building in time to turn it westward. And we also have in the flow that's running from the plains up to the Great Lakes, there are some little shortwave troughs in there, and one of them apparently is enough to just kind of nudge it out. And you can see it here, right across the Great Lakes, running down from Lake Superior to Michigan. There's a little trough there, and that's really enough to just kind of give it a little bit of a kick and move it out to the northeast. And you can see in the darker blues up back in the corner with the northern plains, you know, that's a deep trough that's out in the west. So by the time the ridge builds in the eastern part of the United States, it's too late for Jose. But on the other hand, bursting onto the scene at that point is what will probably be Maria, and probably be Hurricane Maria if the aggressiveness of the models that I've seen are anywhere close to being correct. Models are being extremely aggressive with the system that is going to be Maria. So I think we're going to jump now. I want to go to the to Maria. I'm not going to spend any time really on Lee because that's just really a non-factor. It's so far out. But notice that you have. We'll first look at the situation aloft. And, you know, it starts off with Jose off the Florida coast there. You can see the ridge out to the east. So the ridge Jose is now punching through the ridge. Part of it is in the Western Gulf, and the other part of it is just off the Atlantic coast, and it's kind of punching right through. You've got Maria now on the scene on the southern end of this ridge. So what happens is Jose goes up and out. The ridge builds around Maria, and we have what look like ideal conditions for strengthening here. This thing could become a tropical storm and then a hurricane in a hurry as it moves west-northwestward. And notice that it takes it, and this is as a hurricane, over the leewards again, and this time toward Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. So I think that threat is real. A number of the models do show this. And as we go into the longer term, you know, and now we're getting into the, you know, the errors get big range, you know, we're starting to see it over toward the Bahamas. So is it going to follow a track similar to Irma, only maybe a little bit further to the south so that it catches not only the leewards but it catches Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic in its path? I think that certainly is something that we're going to need to consider here. We'll show you with the 10-meter wind, and we'll run that back. So the key going forward for Maria is going to be that strong ridge to the north. We don't see any evidence, by the way, of any kind of wind shear or upper low that's going to develop and rip it apart, at least keep it from strengthening. I really think this could strengthen in a hurry. And you'll notice that we haven't even gone that far out into the GFS here. We're only into Sunday morning, so that's tomorrow morning. And it already has this as a pretty strong tropical storm. And then judging from the pressures, it strengthens it to a hurricane when it moves over the northern leewards and over Puerto Rico. Now, if this track works out correctly, there are going to be issues with the interaction with the bigger islands, especially the Dominican Republic. But it kind of straddles that on the north coast on this particular run. And then we start to see a jog more toward the north as we get toward western Cuba. So it seems like the models have been doing this for a number of runs where starting to show a jog toward the north in the longer term. So I think Maria is going to be one to watch. It could wind up being another, the Cat 2, Cat 3, not out of the question. Might even be a little stronger than that. Some of the intensity models actually take this up pretty high to a Category 4. Would not, nothing would surprise me, considering what we've had so far. Another major would not be a shock by any stretch of the imagination. You get years like this where they just want to happen. You can't. Persistence. There's a saying about the trend being your friend, and I think this holds. Works a lot in the weather world. In the wintertime, we get winter storms behave like that. Let me show you on the satellite of Maria, because I really think this is pretty impressive. I'm actually almost a little bit surprised that the Hurricane Center didn't do something with this on this run. But if you look closely, I mean, there's definitely what looks like a developing tight circulation right near the middle of the convection, right in there. You can see the curling that is going on the visible satellite view. They have other things they look at. I'm just kind of giving it a cursory view, but I would expect that they're going to make this a tropical, at least a tropical depression, if not a tropical storm. And judging by the fact that they have watches up already for some of the islands, I think there's a pretty good bet that this is going to be upgraded to a tropical storm later today. We'll look at the track models, the hurricane track models for this, and these are the latest. And you're going to notice that there's fairly tight agreement among these models here with the track. So, over the northern leewards, around Puerto Rico, some over Puerto Rico, and then over the north coast or just north as it heads to the Dominican Republic. So it makes sense. The GFS is in the same place. The European last night was in the same place. So I don't see any reason to go against that. So let me put myself in the frame, and we will address whatever questions you have. If it lets me put myself in the frame, is it going to? First, I have to find me, and apparently I'm lost. Okay. Where am I? I'm lost. I've fallen and I can't get up. Oh my, where is it? Am I hiding behind one of these boxes? What it happens is with these things, it's like once it goes off the frame, I have to, it's hard for me to find where the box goes. So apparently I've been cast into the darkness somewhere. So, you know what? I'll do this instead. How's this? We'll put up Jose on half the screen, and we'll put up Maria on the other half, and By the way, you can see, look at the structure of both these systems. You know, you can see how well developed Jose is, because it's a minimal hurricane, so obviously it would be. And you can see the cloud structure of what I think will be Maria is very impressive, but it's not, obviously it's not quite where Jose is. But I'll bet you that when they do the first advisory on this, that it's not going to be to a minimal tropical storm, that it might be to something else, maybe 50 miles an hour when they get it underway, because it just really looks like it's developing very, very quickly here. So let me look at what you guys have been saying. Oh, thank you so much. Joyce Mack, thank you very much for the cup of coffee and the tip. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hitting the super chat. You know, it's a very nice gesture when you guys do that, and I really do appreciate it. So let me go back. So Ben McGinnis, you've got you've got your view for Nova Scotia. So you know it might get close. Should pass to the south. Some of the other older model runs, by the way, we're doing all these loops over the last couple of days, and I wonder whether that's even going to be the case now. It just looks like it's, you know, if it's going out faster into the northeast, there may not be any kind of looping issue going on in the longer term. Let's see. UK gets the unnatural disasters. USA we get the weather challenges. Well, you guys in the UK sometimes get some pretty big storms that come in off the Atlantic too. Cameron, Pine, all depends on Jose. If Jose moves out quicker, Maria will be more south and west. I agree. That's correct. I think that's you're correct on that. The faster Jose gets out of the way, the further south and west, because Jose in its wake leaves a trough behind. And it leaves behind a trough, and as a result, you create a weakness. I'm just wondering why you guys are seeing. I did move a full screen here, and I'm not sure why you're not seeing it. So I'm guessing you guys are still here. But I'm not sure why my picture's showing just pretty much the same shot, but no matter. Okay, yeah, it leaves a trough behind, and they will respond to that weakness. So if Jose gets out of the way, there'll be no weakness for it to respond to. Ben McGinnis, I've been looking at websites like Ventusky and Windy, and I was wondering why the wind model seemed to stop at the coast. Does the wind naturally stop in this case, or do those models just not show up? I'm not sure. You mean in terms of the speed? You know, well, the land friction cuts the wind down to a large degree, and you know, you get out to the coast, particularly right along the immediate coast, there tends to be, you know, the wind is it's always windier along the coastline. You've got all kinds of different things going on from the water versus the land, a lot of temperature differential. But you know, with these storms, you know, the land does tend to cut it in half, and you see the model guidance a lot of times will have gales right to the coast, but not that much inland with a coastal system. So that's sort of a, you know, nature kind of does its thing where it tries to afford some protection for land areas versus the coast. Hope we don't break the record for number of retired names in the year in the Atlantic Basin. I think 4 in 2005 is the record. You know what? Anthony Orr, who's usually on here, but he might be busy today, is the person that is good with the history stuff. So he'll maybe, if he's hanging around right now, he'll verify that. You know, I'm really bothered by the fact that you guys can't see the hurricane. You know, I put it up there on the full screen. Did I put it up far enough? Because I'm showing, you know, the screen you guys are looking at. Can you let me know what you actually see right now? Because I have a screen up there with the boxes, so I don't know if it just froze that way or what. Let's see what impact is going to be for the Almaden. I think the impact from Jose on New York City right now, based on what I'm looking at, is going to be minimal. There'll be some fringe gales along the immediate New Jersey coast, east of the Garden State Parkway, and maybe for, and also for central and particularly eastern Long Island and southeastern New England. But that's going to be about it, unless we suddenly start seeing last-minute shifts. So you're seeing one big square. Is that, J.S. Sweetie? You're not seeing the satellite loop at all? I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Because I pulled up the loop of Jose, but I guess I'm having some problems here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I see it now. It did finally come up. It looks like it's a little slow on the uptake here. So let me see if I can get this to shrink down so I could have both of them up here. And let's see. So at least you guys can see one, so hopefully you can see all three. No, you still can't. I thought you had it. It's very, very odd. I thought maybe it must be some sort of something must be going on with the technically. My apologies for that. Okay, there's a 30-second delay. Okay, so I must have a frozen screen here. So as long as you're telling me that both, now you have all three, excellent. Okay, so you're seeing it. It's good. I'm happy. Is that disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico going to develop? Raymond, you're getting greedy, aren't you? You know what? I didn't really look at that too closely, although I have to tell you, in the longer term, a couple of days ago, the GFS actually was developing something in the western Gulf of Mexico. So why don't we focus on what's out here so far? It's very hard to handle two systems at once, especially if they're causing two land threats. Does Maria have a chance for us in the longer term? Well, look, things tend to be repetitive. So Jose coming up the East Coast could suggest that Maria might make a run in the long term. It also, the fact that Irma wound up going further west down toward Florida, maybe that's the track it's going to take. I think the openings are going to be pretty wide. So we'll deal with that in the longer term when we get there. Okay, so folks, listen, let's call a stop here, and I will come back later today or in the early evening. We'll have all the afternoon weather models up, and we'll go through everything and see what's happening. And by that time, we'll probably have a new tropical storm. Is it true after a hurricane, winter gets much colder? Pugmaster, I don't, the only link that correlation that I've seen by forecasters who pay attention to these things is the fact that in the Pacific, the typhoons in the West Pacific, the ones that recurve and go to the Gulf of Alaska and wind up getting absorbed by low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska, usually tend to cause deep troughs in the east in the short, in a few days and beyond after that. So it may have a short-term impact. I don't know what Atlantic systems and what impact they have, but when we get these late-season typhoons, you wind up that they recurve and go up toward the Gulf of Alaska. Those actually do have some impact in the weather across North America. But as far as a longer-term impact, I've never seen anyone that's written about it. I certainly don't really know if there is. I tend to think that somebody may find a link, but I haven't, up until now, I haven't seen anyone. Is that me or two cyclones in the Atlantic, Lee and Cyclone 15, having similar paths? Lee is way out in the Atlantic, so we're not even concerned about that right now. That's still off the southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands and moving very slowly. But we've got Cyclone 15 is the one that's east of the Lesser Antilles. And, that might wind up having, at least initially, it looks like it may have a path very similar to Irma, which is not going to be good for, especially for the Leeward Islands that they were so devastated by Irma, and then got the glancing blow from Jose, and now they're going to have to deal with this. Not good. And yet the Hurricane Center, by the way, may put up tropical storm watches for someplace from the eastern Carolina Outer Banks on up to southern New England later today, depending on what the models do. Or they may just take the course of least regret and put them up in case at least acknowledging that it's close enough that they could be an issue. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again, Joyce, for hitting the super chat. Ben McGinnis, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day lobster fishing, getting lobsters. And we'll keep an update. I'll keep you updated on what's going on with respect to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and the Canadian Maritimes. And we'll see you guys all a little bit later on this afternoon. Figure late afternoon, or more than likely early this evening, maybe around 7 or 8 o'clock will be a good time.